Hi, everyone. This is Carlyn Crowe with the Iowa Developmental Disabilities Council, and this is the March 20th, 2023 edition of Capitol Snapshot. It's just me today doing our snapshot. Usually Amy Campbell and I would do this together. Last week, she gave me the day off and recorded it herself, and so I'm doing the same for her. So I hope she's having a good day of not having to record, although she's going to help edit. So thanks, Amy, in advance for that. And hopefully we'll be back together next week. So this week, I'm going to fly through some bills that are still moving through the legislature this session. I'm calling them the good, the bad, the ugly, the confusing, and the disappointing. And then we'll talk through some ways that you can take action on the issues or the bills that are important to you and your family and your community. So we'll leave a little time at the end to focus on that. So let's move forward and look at the good. So, I mean, the good news is there are some good bills moving through the legislature this session that affect people with disabilities. The two at the top of the list here, House File 608 and House File 610, actually both passed the House last week, and 608, which requires school staff to be trained on seizure identification and seizure first aid, has already moved through the Senate committees. So it can move right to the Senate and go to Senate debate. So that's really good news for that bill. And the advocates who've been working on that have been working on it for several years. So this is great progress for them this year. As well, 610, which requires or gives a student with autism who is seeking treatment during the day and has to leave school an excuse for leaving school. That passed the House this week also, and now we'll move to the Senate, where it needs to move through Senate Education Committee. Also, Senate File 252, which we've talked about quite a bit, which gives scholarships for people going through comprehensive transition training at 2 universities in Iowa, provides scholarships for that. It has also passed out of House. That happened a couple weeks ago. And it has also passed out of a Senate subcommittee as of last week. So hopefully it can move through the Senate and be approved also. So those 3 have really good potential. The rest of the ones on the list are either not moving or are moving very slowly. They've all come out of the funnel, so there's an opportunity for them to still be introduced. But the lifetime caps, which would be changed from yearly caps to lifetime caps for home and vehicle modifications for the ID waiver, is still kind of stuck in committee. And that could be because there's a lot of changes potentially going on in Medicaid. And so this may be something that they're kind of putting on the back burner before making, not making changes to this before some other changes are made. So that may sit there for a while, but it has very minimal fiscal impact. The cost of it would be low compared to what it could do for individuals on the ID waiver and their families. So that one I know is important for a lot of people, and you might want to contact your legislator about that to see if they can get it moving. And as well, House File 243, that's about removing insurance limits based on age for autism treatment, is also not moving along. It has passed out a subcommittee and committee in the House, but it's not gotten to the floor yet. And there's some more opposition to that because there's insurance coverage and additional costs. As well, 626 has good potential. Also, it's called the medical switching bill, which would allow you to stay on a prescription that is working for you, even if your insurance company wants you to switch to something that is lower cost or is part of their prescription formulary. And that one has made good movements on both the House and Senate side. And I know that they're working out some details right now. As well as House File 378, which would provide automatic increases in reimbursement rates for Medicaid providers. That has moved through a committee also, but is kind of sitting stuck right now. So it's a good list of good bills that have potential, and we're keeping a watch on them, and they all are ripe for advocacy. If you would like to contact your legislators and let them know if there's ones that you are particularly interested in seeing passing. So on to the bad, and there's maybe a lot of bad bills moving through the legislature this year, but these are the two that we're really concerned about for individuals with disabilities and people who need to access food assistance programs, and people who are on Medicaid. So these are the two bills, both there's one in the House and one in the Senate. They're both being referred to as the SNAP bills, and you've probably heard about them because of the limits on certain types of food that legislators want to place on people who have applied for SNAP benefits. But there's a lot more to it, and it's complicated, but it requires asset testing for all public assistance programs, and that would include Medicaid. So it could have some devastating effects on families who have children with who are on Medicaid or on a waiver, or other individuals who do not have people on Medicaid in their household, because the asset test would apply to the whole household. So these have moved out of committee. They're kind of sitting. I haven't seen any action on them yet, because I think that they're working on what the asset test would be and the limits on it. So it's taking a little more work, but we expect to see them come up again, and we will be on alert and help you be on alert when they do come up, and have some talking points for them also. The ugly, and these we don't need to talk about too much because they didn't move through the funnel, but that means that they can come up in next year's session because they were introduced, and some of them actually did move through subcommittee. So these are all bills that have to do with voting and have to do with some limitations and restrictions on voting that basically make it harder or not as easy for certain individuals to vote, whether you vote absentee or do not vote in person. It causes some extra barriers. So we are in opposition to these bills, and we have declared our opposition, and we will monitor them next year. But you don't have to worry about them this year. Yay. So the ugly ones, yep, we don't have to worry about at least those 4 ugly ones. The confusing ones. You've probably heard about the guardianship and conservatorship bills and issues that have come up. And it's the first 2 on the list here, Senate File 295 and House File 650. They have both passed out of committees in their respective chambers. And Senate File 295 is the one we're supporting because it takes into account the reporting requirements for individuals who are guardians or conservatorships or conservators, and the paperwork that they need to do. It makes it maybe not easier for people to move through that paperwork, but it makes it more consistent for everyone doing it, whether you're using an attorney or not. So we believe this makes good change for protecting individuals who need a guardian or are under a conservatorship. There's some extra protections, and the paperwork is not onerous, it's just consistent. It may be long, but it's consistent. 650 is a little more difficult and gives a little bit more ease to attorneys rather than individuals who are put in the position to need to do this paperwork. So we're supporting 295, and I urge you to look. I mean, they're difficult bills to read. So if this applies to you and you would like some more information, please give us a call. But we do have some other talking points about these bills. Not nobody likes all of that, either of them, well enough to give a lot of support. But we know that there's changes that need to be made, and neither one of them are perfect. But we think the Senate file is better, for sure. So moving on, House File 604 is kind of confusing because it's allows a teacher to move a disruptive student from the classroom and has some other implications for that. And the legislators who are supporting this have said this would not include students on an IEP, but that's not written into the bill. So we're watching this, and it's just on the confusing list because we're not sure what's going to happen with it. House File 566 actually did pass the House just last week, and it makes changes to boards and commissions that are under Health and Human Services, and it actually eliminates the Brain Injury Advisory Council, which we see as not good. And also it makes changes to boards and commissions and councils and the way that they are reimbursed. If you're on a board or a council or a commission and you have to travel to for meetings, there will be no more reimbursement for some of those commissions. So certain ones. So we don't see that as very accessible for people who might want to serve on these boards and commissions. So it has passed the House. This is part of the governor's reorganization bill, but this is a small part of it. And so it's confusing and disappointing that this is moving through. So it may be it's something we're watching, and it could be something that you might want to watch. The disappointing. So this is it talks about the governor's reorganization bills that have now passed both the House and the Senate. And the reason we find these disappointing, and we did not, as a DD Council, did not take a opposition or a strong stance for these bills, because there was just too many unknowns, and there's some places that are good in them, but there's some other or parts of the bills that could have a bad effect on individuals with disabilities in Iowa. First of all, the bill moves, and one that we're really concerned with, moves vocational rehabilitation services, which is currently under the Department of Education, to workforce development. And this is a big change because voc rehab gets a lot of funding from the federal level as part of being an educational entity and their connections to the school systems. And they work a lot with the school systems and have established ways of following students that may not be available if they move to Iowa Workforce Development. So it's causing some hardship there. It could for them. And they've also recommended eliminating 10% of their workforce, which we see as could have a bad effect for kids or students in Iowa schools who need the help of voc rehab to move through their education and to get employed. So we're very disappointed that has passed, and it was recommended in an amendment that did not come up, but the amendment was voted down. So the bill's passed as is. And the other parts of the bill that you've probably heard more about are the restructuring of the Department for the Blind and moving the Office of Deaf Services to Department of Health and Human Services, and moving the Iowa Braille and Sight Saving School and the Iowa School for the Deaf from under the Board of Regents to the Department of Education, which doesn't sound that bad, but it's what we've heard from people in the blind community and the deaf and hard of hearing communities is that these are changes that they do not think are needed because things are working well for them as well as can be expected. And so they did not want to see these changes. And so the reason this is under disappointing for us is we feel like Iowans were not heard on these issues. Iowans with disabilities spoke up en masse. We heard a lot of legislators say they got a lot of email from people who were in opposition to these changes, and they still voted to pass these bills. So please check InfoNet this week for more details on this, and where you can watch the testimony. And the members of the House Democrats offered 17 amendments that could have made some of these changes that we thought were important, and all of them were voted down. So more of that and the detail on that and who those legislators are can be found on InfoNet this week. We had talked last week about March being declared Disabilities Awareness Month in Iowa. And we had a great ceremony, so to speak, and a resolution that passed the House. We talked to House members about things that are important to us for people with disabilities, and really emphasize that people with disabilities should be included in decisions that are being made about them. So they should have a seat at the table and be part of the discussion, so that decisions are made with them instead of for them. And as we saw with the passage of the governor's reorganization bill, some of that just did not happen. And so that's why it's a little bit disappointing when you use your voice and you have the right messages and the right facts and everything's in alignment, and your voice does not get heard. And so it is disappointing, but we will just keep using our voice until it is heard, or is heard by the right people. And in the meantime, we will keep talking to legislators about how they can listen better. And we've given them some tips on that, because sometimes some people don't know how to reach out. So this was our thank you and kind of tip sheet for legislators about how to give people with disabilities a seat at the table. And this is available on our website. It's also, the link is also in InfoNet. Also, this week, we are sending out our kind of position paper, but more of an analysis on how the education savings account and the school choice Students First bill that was passed last month and signed by the governor, how this could affect all students with disabilities who need services. And that could be students in public school or students in non-public school. So this is a information sheet about our concerns. They have to do with funding and also discrimination. There's students who attend a non-public school are at higher risk for discrimination because they're not protected by federal law, specifically the ADA and the IDEA. So the ADA being the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the IDEA is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which ensures that every student can get a free and appropriate public education, but that does not happen in a non-public school. They're not required to provide that. So what we're recommending is full funding for special education in Iowa, for the area education agencies who have to monitor and make sure that students with disabilities are provided the services that they need, whether they're in public school or non-public school. And also, last year, there was a legislative task force that convened by law to put together recommendations for students who in need of special education who go to non-public schools. And that those recommendations have not been discussed much during the debate on the educational savings accounts this year. So we are recommending that those be reviewed so that all students who need special education services, no matter what school you go to, receive what they need, and the accompanying services that go along with special education. So you can look for this on our website also. And now let's talk about how to take action. So this coming week, we have 3 groups that we're sponsoring coming to the Capitol. So that's great to have more people meeting face-to-face with their legislators and breaking up some of these issues. You don't have to come to the Capitol to make a difference and take action. And we're going to show you a quick way here that you can take action on some of these things that we've talked about today. The 2 position papers that I just mentioned are both something that you could send to your legislators. We have sent those to them, but having it come directly from you makes a big difference. So if those issues are important to you, please think of that as something you can do also, and those can be downloaded from our website. Okay, so moving on to visiting Bill Tracker. And Bill Tracker isn't a person named Bill Tracker. It's actually our bill tracking area on InfoNet on our website. So we're going to look at that real quickly, and then ways that you can take action. And both of these tabs are on our website at iowaddcouncil.org, and it's under InfoNet. And we again want to emphasize that, you know, this month and forevermore, we want to people to understand that decisions about people with disabilities should be made with people with disabilities. And that's our message for the month and for more. So I'm going to move here quickly to the Take Action Center and the Bill Tracker. Here's what Bill Tracker looks like. And it's easy here to search for bills. So for example, I typed in autism and active because we want to know what is active in the legislature right now. Search bills, and these are the 2 bills that come up. And both of these mentioned earlier as our list of good bills. We can take that off of there and just search all bills that are active right now that we're tracking, and you get a long list. So if you have keywords that you want to type in, it gives you a shorter list. But you can click on any of these and get more information about where it's at right now in the legislature. This one was assigned to a committee. After we could talk to our senators about. And to do that, of course, once again, you don't have to come to the Capitol. You can go to the Take Action Center, which is under InfoNet here. Take Action Center, go right to it. And as you can see, when I click on it, it comes up with my name and address because I have joined the DD network, which is up here in the right-hand corner. If you see join our DD network, you get you get recognized on our website. It's not tracking everything you do. It's just tracking you on our website. So when you move down, you can see for me, when it talks composing your message, that it's recognized me as my governor is Kim Reynolds, my senator is Isaiah Knox, and my representative is Akeo Abdul Samad. And so I don't even have to look them up. It's already done it for me. And then there are some great tips here about how to put together your message. And so I'll leave that for you to read through, but I can show you quickly what I did here. In the subject line, I put autism coverage, and then just put together a quick message here that says, as a mother of an adult son with autism, it is difficult for us to cover medical costs that are not covered by insurance because of his age. Please support House File 243 that would lift the age limit on autism coverage. And then as you move down, you can see it's already filled in for me. It has my name, my email, phone number, address, and I can sign up for other alerts here too. But all I have to do is click and it sends the message to the individuals that I want it to be sent to. So this is a really easy way for you to take action. It's almost in for you, but the thing that you need to think through is your messaging. So make sure that you're asking for them to do something, whether it's support a bill, vote on a bill, bring it out of committee, or there, maybe something else that you're asking them to do. But tell a little bit about your story and why it's important to you. What value does this have for you? And make it personal that way. And the shorter and the sweeter, all the better, because they're getting a lot of email. Okay, so that was a lot of me talking this week. Thanks for joining us this week, and I hope to see you next week. And in the meantime, I hope you take action. And if you need any help with that or have any questions, please email me or give me a call at the DD Council. Thank you and have a great week.